Hello again, welcome back to European Autocraft Studios Bentley edition. Nick's been away for a week with some family emergencies. I haven't had a chance to do any kind of prep to do a video, but he did come in Saturday so we could come up with something to show you guys. This is an early Bentley, it's a 2006. Some of these Bentleys have specific problems. One of them, a vacuum leak. Sounds simple enough, you fix a vacuum hose, but in reality it's a lot more complicated than that. Some of the things that occur when you have a vacuum leak on one of these cars, especially this one being a more severe vacuum leak, and I'll show you and explain that in a little bit. But let me just explain some of the things that came up on a report when we checked the DTCs. And that's diagnostic trouble codes, for those of you who don't know, because I didn't know, I had to look it up because I forgot. Anyways. Well, so when we do a scan on the engine, we have a check engine light. The check engine light comes on, car still runs and drives fine, everything works great. But we scan it, and we've got multiple pages of faults. Not all of them related to the vacuum leaks, but we'll get back to that in a minute. But the pressure sensor for the brake booster, there's a pressure sensor that reads the amount of vacuum being created by the engine to operate the brakes. If it doesn't get enough vacuum, the sensor says there's something wrong, and it puts that on, the pressure sensor. The next one, turbocharger boost control position sensor. This has a boost controller, it's basically a wastegate. The lever moves, the computer knows what position it's in, but it's not moving. So it knows there's something wrong. Boost pressure control valve. Another one, mechanical malfunction. Secondary air injection flow pressure sensor. There's a valve that opens using engine vacuum that allows the air to go into the engine on cold startup to get the catalytic converters running, get them heated up properly. Incorrect immobilizer key, well, that's a whole other thing. But those vacuum, these could easily be mistaken for mechanical problems. And a lot of times they get misdiagnosed. But to get to most of this stuff, these turbochargers, these wastegate valves, control valves, the engine has to come out. So we need to make sure that we have the fault is there before we go spending 40 or 50 hours to take the engine out and repair these components. So one of the things we do is a smoke test. We have a machine that builds smoke under a little bit of pressure, and we inject that into a line if we suspect vacuum leaks, which in this case we did. We have a vacuum reservoir here, and this stores vacuum while your engine is under boost, because you can't produce vacuum while you're producing pressure. We also have a vacuum pump. Just about any turbocharged car has a vacuum pump because you don't build vacuum under boost. So you store it, and you can also put your brake booster into a vacuum so you can still stop the vehicle. This pump will tend to run a lot more when you have these big vacuum leaks. It can also burn out the pump. So there goes your safety factor. So we take the line off the reservoir here. You can see there's nothing there because I have the entire vacuum system out because I have to rebuild it. If you look through here, we have to take the steering rack off. And this steering rack, I don't know if you can hear me at this position, but this steering rack is behind the engine and on top of the transmission. And you can see it now, it's on the floor, our dirty floor. Sorry about that. It's been a very busy week. So to get these vacuum lines out, which I'm going to show you here in a minute, the suspension comes apart, and then inside the car, steering coupler comes apart, and then we slide the steering rack out, and then we go tackle the vacuum manifold. It's a huge assembly in there of all different check valves. There's little vacuum venturis in there to boost vacuum, and once that fails, all these faults start coming up. This one is a severe case, so we have a lot more faults. Sometimes one side is split and it causes a minor vacuum loss. So some functions, if it takes a lot of pressure or vacuum pressure to pull the rod for the wastegate, it won't pull it because they have a vacuum leak on the one side. So let me show you, let me just show you the top of the engine here where these connect. Come on down. This is one of my favorite engines, a 6-liter W12 cylinder. The two vacuum sources is two individual intake manifolds. There's one vacuum source here and one over here, and there's a check valve here. So while this is sucking under boost, it can't push back again. That way the vacuum that's stored won't get back into the open intake manifold, and then you lose your vacuum while you're under boost. So very nice system. It's well designed, well engineered, except the plastic tubing just can't cut it. It can't take the temperature swings and vibration. And let me show you what happens to that. Now I have the whole manifold assembly apart here. So this is what has to come out. These are the two lines that come up to the engine that I showed you. This is another one. This is the smaller vacuum system section that comes up in here. One way to tell if you have a problem, this one's been repaired. Somebody put some silicone around it and some heat shrink tubing. What you get is a split in the pipe. If I peel that off, you can see the plastic splits where this one I actually cut to get it up. This is where it splits. So the part of the check valve that slides in this tube keeps pressure on this, and over time it cracks and it opens up a little V gap down here and just sucks air right into the engine. So the rest of the system doesn't get vacuumed. So that's the first one. This was repaired before we got the car. This one is the other side. Now look at this. There's an example of what we find when we pull these apart. You can see the split right here. So this one had two. This was the worst one because when I pulled this out, this was just wide open. This was actually off like that when I found it. So this just totally drained all the air, all the vacuum supply for the smaller ports. I believe these go to the wastegate controllers and whatnot. Let's see. What we do here is I replace. Well, there's another. Let me back up a minute. These plastic pipes I replace with some soft aluminum, and then I'll make a little connector piece at the top and crimp these real nice. So this hard plastic line I make out of aluminum. The smaller ones, like this one here, this one's fine because it just has a little stopper where the hose goes on, and then just a little clamp on it. These don't break here. It's only when they're flared out, like this one, that they break, or this one, where it's actually pushed over the little nipple, and it just splits right off there. This one I cut because I had to slide it through some clamps. I didn't want to break the clamps, so I just cut this and I slide it through. I'm replacing these lines anyways. This one. These are getting replaced anyways, so I just cut it to slide it out to save the connectors. Everything else is pretty simple, really. We got some little vacuum amplifiers here. You can see the Venturi, where we have a lot of vacuum here as it's passing through. It creates a much more of a larger vacuum here, and this one goes up to the brake booster. What a mess. So that's what it takes, 14 hours labor to do this job. And it sure beats pulling the engine and replacing something that you didn't know it needed, or that you thought it needed, but it didn't. So always look for vacuum leaks. The smoke test works great. We put smoke into, where's the line that goes over to the brake booster, this one. I think it's this one. No, it was this one. This goes this way, and this goes over to the top of that reservoir. This is where we pump smoke into under pressure. It pressurizes the whole system here, and wherever there's a leak, we get smoke. This was a lot of smoke. So we knew it was a vacuum leak. So that's it for the vacuum leaks, but these also have other issues because of batteries. There are two batteries in this car. One is a very large battery. They call it the electronics battery or the drive battery. That's the one that every system in the car operates on. The other battery is a little smaller, and that's the one that cranks the engine. if you're not using a battery maintainer, the electronics battery dies pretty quick. It needs to have that 2 weeks probably max before that battery is low on voltage. Once the start battery is activated, starts the car, the alternator starts charging the batteries, then you see it come up, but you have a ton of faults. And some of them are as follows. Incorrect immobilizer key. So it doesn't even know your key is in the car. Sometimes it starts, sometimes it doesn't. Automatic transmission. That had no faults. No faults on the ABS. I wasn't supposed to read those. Oh well. Supply voltage, terminal 30. We all know what terminal 30 is. That's battery, live voltage all the time. That's 30 power. Start authorization faults. That's open or short to ground. It's all battery voltage problems. Seat memory. ZAB cockpit. That's my favorite. That's the entertainment center. That has tons of faults. Short to ground. No module for access. Module and instrument panel on comfort CAN. CAN bus is the communication system for all these components. Yeah, control heads. We got central electric system. Engine 2. That's a second engine controller. That's got faults for the boost control for the vacuum. Incorrect immobilizer key again. We have exhaust temp sensors. These are the only ones that are normal. The exhaust gas temp sensors, they read the temperature of the exhaust stream. They just fail. Has nothing to do with battery voltage or a vacuum, but they're also something wrong with this car. Airbag system. All this fault found, no voltage. Low battery voltage. ABS control module. I feel like I'm doing these over and over again here. Steering wheel, supply voltage. What else? Control module, tire pressure monitors, no voltage. CAN gateway, that's the device that takes all the CAN signals and sort of routes them where they need to go. Low voltage there. The convertible roof, auto roof, supply voltage. Level control system for your suspension. Low voltage, drive battery voltage low, which is the electronics battery. And then look at this. All of these are faults under these control modules. We've got central convenience. This shuts off just about everything as the voltage gets low to try to keep the car at a safe voltage so things still work. But it starts shutting off systems that aren't needed. And the list goes on and on and on. I mean, yeah, this is a lot. Wipers. Of course, you want the wipers to work, so they shut everything else off so you have power to run the wipers. It's just a long list. And these faults are going to stay there for a long time. The telephone. The telephone did not have any faults. Go figure. I understand. So, the best thing you can do is keep a battery maintainer on it. The factory battery maintainer for the Bentleys charges both batteries. It goes into the battery switching system. It will charge the electronics battery, and then when that voltage comes up, switches to charge the start battery. Start battery doesn't have much of a draw on it, just sits there, but it wants to keep it from sulfating. So battery maintainers on these newer cars, 2006, yeah, it's not like new, but it uses a lot of electronics and it uses a lot of power to maintain itself while it just sits there. So that's the biggest thing. If you just want to put a battery maintainer on it and you don't have the factory one, you can just put a battery maintainer on the electronics battery. It's a very large battery on the left side. And that runs, that'll keep everything operating. If the car won't start because the start battery is dead, you can just turn the key to the left. The magnificent switching unit allows you to start the car from the electronics battery so you don't get stuck anywhere. Okay. That's Bentley. Love Bentleys. We want to be the #1 Bentley independent service center in Naples, just because we love these cars so much and we do a lot of work on them, and there's just so many of them in Naples. So that's what I wanted to show you on this Bentley, big beautiful W12 cylinder. This is actually like 2 VR6 engines put together. The pistons are staggered on one side, so one little cylinder head covers all 6 cylinders. It's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. One day I'd like to put one of these engines in another car, something a little smaller. Maybe one day we'll do that. So that's it for the Bentley. A few more things coming up. I know you guys want to see some 928 stuff. I have a 1979 928 engine that I've been working on for a long time for a customer. He's a little slow on getting things done. He finally gave me the okay to replace the pistons. I put pistons, new rings, we had it honed, and we sort of stopped there until he could recover for some financial issues. And I don't like the pistons. I told him I want to change the pistons. They had some water got into it while I was in storage, while he had it, and there's some pitting in the pistons. Probably be okay, but I'd rather see it nice and fresh and new in there. So far, I haven't been able to find new pistons, but I have a line on an engine, a good engine. I might get that engine and take the pistons out for this engine. I'll clean them up in the wet blaster and go from there. Wet blaster. Boy, nothing but problems. So, let's just skip over to that. I have the new motor. You saw last week that we had to remove the motor. The motor's out. The machine is in pieces. But we realized that water can get into the cavity where the motor sits, and that's to keep the slurry pump wet. Unfortunately, that motor we have is not waterproof. So my fabricator has it now. He does great, fantastic work. I have a radial seal that's going to go up under the motor. He's making an aluminum housing for it that will bolt to the motor and seal, and then the radial seal will prevent water from going up inside the shaft of the engine. It's not soaking wet, but it'll be vapor in there, and when it gets hot, water will eventually get in the engine. And my luck, I'll use it for a month and it'll be dead again. So we want to prevent that. So still, nothing on the vapor blaster, wet blaster machine. I want to show you how it works and get some more work done, but it's another week away. Man. Same with this. Ferrari is next on this lift, but this is taking so long to do all week that I just haven't got the Ferrari up yet. Bear with me. I appreciate you watching. Please like and subscribe and all that stuff. We need the support. And again, a lot of good stuff coming. We just had a setback this week, but we'll see you next week with more good stuff. Thanks for watching.